Greetings all, I'm Bill Vencil, this is Chords of Orion, and yeah, the IK Multimedia ToneX. Everybody's been going nuts over this pedal, so I thought I would purchase a unit and compare it to my trusty Strymon Iridium to see who wins, or if there's a winner. So let's get to work. So I'm sure that most of you watching this video are familiar with the idea of amp modeling, and there are a lot of different ways to approach it. The Iridium, the Strymon pedal, for example, has the actual circuit of the amps that it models kind of, programmed into the DSP of the pedal, and then it uses a standard cabinet IR for the cab simulation. The ToneX pedal, on the other hand, uses that tone modeling technology, and theoretically it's AI-driven. So I assume there's some kind of machine learning that when the tone model is brought into the software or the pedal, that the machine learning capability adapts it to whatever the internal circuitry is that's kind of driving the amp and the cab model. That's my uninformed opinion. Please correct me in the comments if you know what you're talking about, unlike me. With such different approaches to amp modeling, I thought it would be fun to do a direct comparison. So here's what I set up on my pedal board. You can see that there is a tuner, and that goes into a Strymon Compadre compressor, which is running into a Strymon Riverside overdrive pedal, and that's running into my Morley volume pedal. From there, the signal goes into a Strymon Deco, and I'm not actually going to use the Strymon Deco for anything except to split the signal. From the stereo outputs of the Strymon Deco, one output goes into the Iridium, and then the other output goes into the ToneX. And then I take the stereo outputs from the ToneX and the stereo outputs from the Iridium and run them into my audio interface. So I end up with two recorded stereo tracks. This allows me to plug my guitar into the front end of my pedal board, play one performance, and capture both pedals at the same time. That way I can easily switch back and forth and let you hear the nuances between the two pedals, and in addition, I can apply some effects in Logic Pro, and both pedals will have the same exact effect chain. So just one more thing before I do the comparison. I just want to note that the Iridium is set up to the round amp model. That is, it's a Fender Deluxe Reverb model. And the cabinet is set up to a Marshall 4x12 with 25-watt greenbacks loaded. And what I've done on the ToneX side is replicate that with a clean 65 Deluxe Reverb model, and I've paired it with a Marshall 1960 4x12 cabinet. I think it's the 1960A cabinet. So I think this will be a pretty fair comparison so you can hear the nuances between the two models. So let's get to work. All right, that was a pretty interesting comparison. At least I thought it was. Do you have any thoughts about which one you prefer? Drop a comment below. So, what are my thoughts? Well, it is interesting. The Iridium sounds and feels more like a real amplifier. When I play through the Iridium, I get more of that non-linear feel of a tube amp. In particular, I can sense a little bit of the tube rectifier sag built into this Deluxe Reverb model. It's got a little bit of that spongy feel. Versus the ToneX, which it's a good tone, but to me it feels like a recording of a good guitar amp overlaid on top of whatever its internal circuitry is, if that makes sense. So this is more realistic, I think, and this is more recorded sounding. That's an unscientific description, but hopefully you kind of get where I'm going with this. So does one pedal win out over the other? If you're a gigging musician and you're playing in a covers band and you're playing lots of different covers and you need lots of different amp tones through the evening, through your sets, then the ToneX is definitely the way to go. You could set this baby up so you could have your amps for set number 1, your amps for set number 2, etc., and really have a very, very flexible set of guitar tones over the course of an evening. On the other hand, if you're interested in more of the dynamic, that traditional dynamic of, imagine you have a guitar amp, a Fender Deluxe Reverb, and you've got your effects in the front end and you're plugging in, and that's kind of what it is what it is, and you make do through the evening, and that's a really cool thing to you, and you just want the vibe of that amp, then I think the Iridium might be the better choice for you. As long as you're into either the Deluxe Reverb, the Vox AC30, or a Marshall, I believe it's a JCM 800, somebody correct me on that, but it's a Marshall amp model. Those are your only 3 choices with the Iridium. So if your tastes fit, I think this might be a really good choice. If you need flexibility, perhaps at the a little expense of realism, then this might be the better choice. Again, if you've got thoughts about these two or either of these two, whether you like them, meh, or hate them, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think. Also, I've got a playlist here of other amp modeler demos that I've done here on the channel. Hope you'll check them out, and I'll see you all over on those videos.